So today we're going to present Navigating the Healthcare Highway, what are my options? And representing today is myself, Lynn, and I represent Accessible Home Care, which is a private home care agency, and I'll be talking about the difference between certified agency and a private home care agency. Then to my right, we have Melissa from Assisted Living. She represents Orchard Grove Assisted Living in Shrewsbury. And then we have Michelle Moran. She is from Lutheran Nursing and Rehab, as well as the Lily Mansion, which is a rest home in Worcester. And then at the other end of the table, we have Patty Tebow, and she represents Notre Dame, and she'll be speaking about the hospice division of Notre Dame, where they have assisted living, they have nursing centers, and the hospice. So we're all local, which is nice. And we did this last year here, and it was successful. So basically, what we wanted to chat about is how you go about accessing different parts of the healthcare highway. And it can be very overwhelming for people.
This may be helpful.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me well, or?
Sure, fine.
Yeah, okay. I have a big mouth.
That
That's-
don't work half the time anyway.
Oh, okay. He's our maintenance guy here. My husband says I have a big loud mouth, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. So, let's use the scenario. We're going to start with home care. Has anybody used home care before at their house or for their loved one or at all, ever?
That's my home care.
Pardon?
That's my home care.
That's your home care, okay. So, home care has been around for many, many years, and there are two different divisions of home care. One is what they call a certified agency, or you hear the term VNA, Visiting Nurses Association. So that is paid for by insurance. So Medicare usually pays for, or other insurances pay for that home care, which is certified. They call it Certified Medicare Agency. And what you need to do is, let's use the scenario, you're in the hospital, they want to send you home, or you're going to a nursing home and then you're going home, and they want to send you with some home care when you get back to your house. So the doctor, for Medicare certified agencies, we need an authorization from a physician. They have to then get authorization, and they'll say, yes, we'll give them so many hours of nursing, so many hours of PT, physical therapy or occupational therapy, and maybe an aide for an hour or two a day, if that, or an hour or two a week. It varies. So when you're receiving those services at home, you cannot leave your home. So if you decide that you're feeling better and you want to go to, I don't know, Wegmans, or you want to go to TJ Maxx, I'll use my favorite, TJ Maxx, you can't do that when you're having under Medicare certified home care agency. You have to stay at home while you're under that and receiving services. So there is some limitations there. And it will cover, it's based on your insurance, so there's no tradition to say it's covered for 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. It depends on what your insurance is and what your clinical needs are too. The other option is called private pay home care. Have you heard of that? Private pay? So that means that you pay privately. Insurance does not cover it. A lot of private pay home care agency, there's about 400 throughout the Massachusetts marketplace from the Berkshires to the Cape. And that is paid privately a long time if you had a long-term care insurance policy. Do anybody have a long-term care insurance policy? Okay. So depending on what you have for a policy, it will either cover for home care, it covers maybe for assisted living, sometimes it covers hospitalization, it depends on what type of policy you have. And that may cover so many hours for home care, so that's another option. A lot of private home care agencies have what they call an aid and attendance program, and that is for veterans and their spouses, and there's certain qualifications that have to be met, obviously financials. You have to have served in a wartime, and you have to be discharged honorably. So if the veteran passes away and his spouse is still living, and she or he needs home care, sometimes the aid and attendance program, if they meet the qualifications, will then cover a certain percentage of their costs for home care, private home care. So there's a couple options there. So when you go on private home care, you can go shopping at TJ Maxx. We don't need a physician's authorization. Again, we don't need insurance authorization because insurance is not paying for your care. You're paying for care yourself. The options that they have, it's based on an hourly cost, and the rates in this area run anywhere from 38 to about 46 an hour. Usually there's a minimum, and that could be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. That means consecutive 2 hours or 4 hours of care. When the aide comes in, that person not only takes care of you, helping you with your activities of daily living, which would be toiletry, showering, feeding, but they can also do light housekeeping. They can drive you to appointments. They can drive you to TJ Maxx. They can drive you to Wegmans. So a lot more options that you have. There's also options and services that are allowed that they call, have anybody heard of what a live-in is? That means that an aide comes and actually lives at your house. So you have that same aide 24 hours a day taking care of you. Sometimes that is only needed for 1 or 2 weeks or longer, depending. There's also what they call a 24/7, and that means that there are 2 aides that come in, and one aide does one shift of 12 hours, the other aide does another shift of 12 hours. We happen to be a medical model. Accessible Home Care is a medical model. We're based in Auburn. We're owned by a nurse. And we have RNs on staff. So our nurses also can come in and do wound care, do IVs, do insulin injections. We work with many hospice companies, so our aides can also help administer the meds if someone is on hospice. We go into a lot of assisted livings. We work with the different nursing homes when someone is nursing rehab is being discharged home. So we all work together. So that's kind of the quick synopsis of the ABCs of home care. Does anybody have any quick questions at all? We'll do a Q&A period
I have
afterwards
a
too.
question about the VA part. You had to serve during wartime?
Yes,
Okay, because I'm a veteran, and I have some VA benefits, but not all.
okay,
So
yeah.
which ones, so.
So we work with Major Jones, and he actually, I can get you information on that if you want. You would be in touch with him, and he would tell you all the qualifications that you would need, and the paper, I forgot what number of paperwork that you need.
So which war are we talking, I mean.
It could be Korean War, it could be Vietnam War, it could be Iraq.
You just have to
so
be
it was
boots.
OIF, 'cause
Yeah.
I
With
was
boots to the
around
ground.
Iraqi freedom, I was in, but.
You had to serve during a wartime, so,
And you have to be like physically boots to the ground.
yeah, yeah. So, so we can help you out and look into that if you'd like, so, great. So we're all gonna be talking about our different, programs and different services that we offer, but one thing that I do wanna mention is just be an advocate for yourself, especially if you end up in the hospital. Advocate for yourself, because unfortunately, the case manager has like 20 different patients that he or she is trying to take care of and trying to discharge and try to, get you here and get you there. So they're a little overwhelmed at times. So please advocate for yourself. If you go to, let's say, unfortunately, you fall, you break a hip, you go to the ER, you get moved, you might need surgery. They're going to do surgery, you get moved to a unit up at the hospital. You have surgery done, you could be there maybe for 3 or 4 days, then they may discharge you home with home care, or they might discharge you to a nursing rehab center for a couple weeks. Again, you have choices. So sometimes case managers will say, you're gonna go to the ABC Nursing Center, and you could say, I'd really like to go to the XYZ Nursing Center because my daughter is a nurse there. And you can advocate for yourself as long as there's openings and they accept the insurance that you have. Again, I really stress, just advocate for yourself. I know it's hard under certain circumstances, but it's very, very important. And, it's based on your information on insurances and where you can go and how long you'll be there. Great. I'm going to talk, next, we're going to talk about assisted living. So this is Melissa.
So my name is Melissa. I am the Senior Director of Sales and Marketing for the residents at Orchard Grove. We are a senior living community that has independent assisted as well as memory care assisted living. What does that mean? And why do people look at a community like ours? For a lot of different reasons. So you don't just need assistance. A lot of times people will come to a community like ours because they're tired of mowing the lawn and the house needs repairs and insurance is going up and you're hiring all these people and stairs are becoming more difficult. Or it could be that you've lost a spouse, your friends are moving away, you're more isolated, you stopped driving, so you're looking for an easier way of life. And that's where a community like the residents of Orchard Grove fits in. We can provide a wonderful, easy way of living without taking anything away. Communities like ours really want to respect your need for an independent lifestyle. And that's why people come to us. They still want to be able to do the things that they want to do, see their friends, have great meals, have options. And that's what we do at Orchard. So we have 3 great meals a day that are prepared by our wonderful culinary team. If you've ever been there, you'll know that they're out of this world. It is just like a restaurant. You can choose what time you'd like to eat with lots and lots of choices. We have cocktail hour every day. We have engagements in the community as well as going out to the community. We do things like going to museums, going to plays, going to hear a band at Mechanics Hall. We've gone to wineries. We have lecture series. It's really about, continuing the things that you want to do and just keeping your lifestyle easier. And if the time comes that you need some support, we have that support right in the community, from just simple medication reminders all the way up to helping you with showers or dressing. We have all of that as well. We have our own care team. They work for us. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And I think that sometimes when we're talking to, maybe it's not you, but it's your mom or your dad that's still living at home and things are not so safe anymore. Communities like ours are really about living with friends and neighbors and making your world bigger again as it's getting smaller when things become harder to manage. If you haven't been there, I welcome you to stop by for lunch. You can say hello to me. You don't even need to visit, but just come on by. We'd love to have you.
Where are you located?
We're located in Walnut Street in Shrewsbury.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you talk about the difference where there's so many assisted livings, especially in this marketplace? There are some that you have to have a buy-in, there's some that,
Yep. So you're going to find, when you're looking around, and again, there's a lot of choices out there and it can be very overwhelming. So we have 2 models. You have a CCRC, which is a continuum care retirement community, like our Southgate. So Southgate is the big buy-in, where you would buy into Southgate and you can start an independent living, which is here. But when you need some assistance, we move there. So we're changing, again, where we're living to get that support. At a community like ours, we offer independent and assisted, but we don't have those big buy-ins. We have that one-time community fee. And when you move into an apartment, you stay in that same apartment no matter what changes in care you have. We just have a philosophy where it's nobody's business. If you change your care level, you're still going to start in one place and you're going to stay in one place and your neighbor's going to stay your neighbor, from the day you move in to when you end. So those are your 2 big main ones, your CCRCs and then communities like ours that have the gamut of 3 with a full continuum of care.
and we always say too, we recommend to really be proactive, so look at, assisted livings, don't go to 100 of them, choose like 3 of them in
Choose
the area. And nursing, rehab, look at like 3 of them. Don't go every day going out touring. But we do recommend that you be proactive and you have the information, because we all know that things can change in a second.
It is, and it's really important. There's a culture inside of every building, just like there's a culture, it feels different. So when you leave a visit, if you go visit any of them, when you walk out, pay attention to how you feel. Wow, I could see myself there. That felt really good to me, that visit. That's a really important, don't dismiss that lightly, because it's important that you can see yourself there, living your best life there. So for sure. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, who is one of my partners when people may need more care than I can provide. I love to use the Lutheran Home.
Thank you, Melissa. My name is Michelle Moore, and I'm Director of Marketing and Business Development at the Lutheran Rehab and Skilled Care Center and also the Lily Mansion Rest Home. I'll talk briefly about the rest home. The rest home is on the same campus as our short-term rehab, our long-term care unit, and our dementia care unit. So in essence, it's a quasi CCRC. Once you move into the rest home, should your care level change, you can move upstairs to our long-term care unit. The rest home, completely different than assisted living. Assisted living, you have your own apartments, you can come and go as you please. You can do that in the rest home, but the rest home, it's not apartment living. It's kind of like group home living. There are private rooms, but because it's a rest home, there are no appliances in your room. So you need to go to a community dining room to eat. It's not for everybody. Assisted living is almost like an independent living, but you have that extra level of assistance. Rest home living usually is for people who have run out of funds, have run out of family, and have run out of options. The Lily Mansion sets itself apart, I think, because of its environments and its surroundings and the level of care. So raise your hand if you woke up this morning and said, I want to be in a nursing home or the hospital.
Right.
It doesn't happen, right?
No way.
So this is not a brochure, this is an information packet, and it's called What to Expect During Your Short-Term Rehab Stay. Lynn had alluded to the fact that it's going to happen. You know, you might end up in the hospital. And like Lynn said, you want to be proactive, not reactive. This can come, you can look online all you want for information, but as Melissa said, I strongly recommend that you go and narrow it down to 3. Don't do them all in one day, you'll be overwhelmed. But also ask your friends and family. You're familiar with Lutheran Rehab. We have other people here who is familiar with Lutheran Rehab. We have 2 volunteers, thank you very much. The short-term rehab unit, when you're in the hospital and you are being discharged for a type of therapy that isn't at Lynn's level. So Lynn is a medical model, but when you're inpatient, you have that 24/7 ongoing. You might discharge from my facility and then go to Lynn before you go home. It's called a step down. But when you go into rehab, you need to know that you get out of it what you put into it. Oftentimes people will ask me, well, what's the average length of stay? I don't know. How hard are you going to work to repair your hip or learn about your COPD or change your diet to make sure that your blood pressure or your blood sugar is in check? Who's going to pay for this? Well, if you have a managed care plan like Fallon, United Health, you would need to get a pre-authorization to come to short-term rehab. Everybody does. It doesn't take long. Sometimes it takes 24 hours. And then you would come to our building. Sometimes you would come in under your Medicare benefit. In order to come under your Medicare benefit under Med A, meaning you don't have, your main insurance isn't United Health or Harvard Health. That could be your Part D for your prescriptions. Medicare A and Medicare B. Medicare A is your inpatient, Medicare B is your medication. In order to access your Medicare benefits, you need to have been an inpatient in the hospital for 3 days. So what does that mean, right? So you go into the emergency room and you've suffered a fall and you have a fracture, and they've determined that surgery isn't necessary, but rehab is necessary. And you're there for a couple of days because they're assessing you. Your physical therapy is assessing you, occupational therapy is assessing you, but you've only been there in the ER for 2.5 days. Can't access short-term rehab on your Medicare benefit. You have to have been actually admitted, and that's something that some people don't understand.
Absolutely.
Because you're in the emergency room doesn't mean you're admitted to the hospital. Being in the hospital doesn't mean an admission. As Lynn had just mentioned, it means observation. Someone is looking at you. Do I expect you to think about this while you're laying in a hospital bed? Absolutely not. But it is mentioned in here. When you discharge from the short-term rehab, from the hospital, and you go to a short-term rehab, you're going to be seen by physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, a dietitian, nutritionist, and the nurse is going to assess you. They're going to work with our medical director, and if necessary, your primary care physician, depending on what your diagnosis is, and we're going to come up with what's called a care plan. And we're going to lay that out for you, and we're going to tell you, okay, this is where you're at, and this is where we'd like you to be when you leave here, and this is how we're going to get from A to B. You should be involved in that entire process. And I know that it's really difficult sometimes to, as they say, question authority, but as Lynn had mentioned, you really should advocate for yourself. If you have questions about your care, ask. If you have concerns, ask. If you want to do something different, ask. If they're doing something in physical therapy that hurts, tell them that it hurts. That doesn't mean you're failing physical therapy. It means that they might need to change their modalities. So what happens when I'm in short-term rehab? We do have private rooms, so there are many short-term rehabs around here. Some are nonprofit, some are for-profit. We all take the same insurances for the most part. We all take Medicare and Medicaid. Your care manager, your case manager in the hospital will determine what insurance is accepted at what facilities. And in theory, they give you an option. They give you three, and which would you choose? And as we mentioned, be proactive. Know in your mind, where would you like to go ahead of time? Maybe your neighbor has been to Jewish Healthcare. Maybe someone's been to Notre Dame. Maybe you have a friend that volunteered at Lutheran Rehab and you've heard great things. When you get to the rehab unit, you're going to be assessed by all the different disciplines. We're going to have a care plan for you. Your length of stay is determined by your insurance company in addition to your the participation that you put in your therapy. We do not decide how long you get to stay there. The insurance company will ask us for documentation, which we will provide them if you've been there for 4 or 5 days. The insurance company is going to say, okay, how is Bill doing? We will give them the paperwork. They may or may not say, okay, great, Bill needs 4 more days of therapy. We're going to give you another authorization for 4 more days of therapy. He will stay for 4 more days. They may say, okay, great, Bill looks good on paper, he's going home now. You have the right to disagree with that decision and say, I don't feel comfortable going home. You may then get discharged with services, or you may get discharged to a rehab unit. Again, the common theme here that I think you're going to hear from all 4 of us is that you need to advocate for yourself and you need to be proactive. You need to know what options are available to you. And there is not enough time in the day for the 4 of us to talk about how many options you really have. There are a lot of them, and I hate to say it, a lot of them are based on money. They're based on your insurance. They're based on sometimes geography. They're based on bed availability when it comes to skilled care, based on bed availability. But know before you get discharged where you want to go and where you want to be. This booklet does talk about your average day. You know, you're going to wake up, you're going to have breakfast. So at a short-term rehab unit, you're going to have probably an hour to 90 minutes worth of therapy a day. If you had a serious condition and you were at Fairlawn or Whittier, you're going to have 3 hours of therapy a day. That's pretty intense. It's not often that someone with a broken hip goes to Fairlawn. That's intensive therapy. The people that go to Fairlawn or Whittier are seriously injured. And sometimes they will go from Fairlawn to me to Lynn. If you are living in an assisted living and you fall and you break a hip or you have pneumonia or what have you, and you come to my building, assisted living will hold your bed for you, so you don't have to worry about where am I going to go home to. You know, once you are in under any of our services, we do take you back. And that's also something I want to touch on real briefly is there's a 30-day rule. So you fell, you broke your hip, and you were in the hospital, and you were discharged on May 10th. And then on June 2nd, you fall, and you go back in the hospital. But there's no reason to admit you because we call it, and I'm going to be frank, we call it a little fluff and buff. You just need a little bit of fluff and buff before you go home. Maybe you were discharged a little too soon. You don't need those 3 days for your Medicare because it's within a 30-day window of an injury or incident. I know this sounds like a lot. You're all looking at me and I see you writing these things down. A lot of this is mentioned in the informational pamphlet that I gave. But again, as Lynn had mentioned, don't be afraid to ask if you don't understand anything. Just because they're doctors or nurses doesn't mean they always necessarily know better. They know the field that they're in, but they don't know how you're feeling, where you're at, and what your circumstances are. So always feel like you have a voice in your care and always feel like you can ask questions.
Michelle, could you elaborate a little bit on the insurances? So if someone comes in from the hospital and they're on Medicare, they have their 3 midnight stays, they go for short-term rehab. Can you talk about the days from 0 to 20?
Sure. So on a Medicare plan, on a straight Medicare plan, Medicare A, it's 80-20. You're going to get, no matter what, you're going to get 60 lifetime days of Medicare should you run out of benefit. So if you run out of, so you get 20 days in the hospital, and then you'll have 80 days of a deductible. When I say hospital, excuse me, I mean a nursing home. We do work with Medicare oftentimes to extend, and under extenuating circumstances, if we provide that paperwork, we may be able to get you additional time. But sometimes there is a copay. We do not determine that. The facilities do not determine what your deductible is. We don't determine how long you're going to be there. It's all based on your insurance. And there's so many insurances, I couldn't possibly give you a blanket. Fallon, for instance, will give a prior authorization every 4 days. Blue Cross Blue Shield will give you sometimes 10 days in a row. They'll see the severity of your injury or incident, and they'll say, okay, on average, it takes about 10 days for this person to recover, and then they will cover that, and then we will set up a care plan to meet that goal. It's no final rule. Medicare is a final rule. It's the 80-20, 20-80, 20 days, and then 80 days of co-payments. That's something that you should know before you go into the hospital, or just, you really should know that in general. You should know what your insurance covers. How many of you have straight Medicare? Okay, you have straight Medicare? Smart. So the managed care plans would be like your United Health, your Blue Cross, your Harvard Pilgrim, so many of them. If you discharge from the hospital and then you still feel like you need that extra oomph for your physical therapy, you have what's called a Med B benefit, and that's on every program, whether it's straight Medicaid or on a managed plan. And that means you can go back for outpatient therapy under your Med B benefits. Lynn, do you know?
No, we don't take the
Okay.
insurance.
But Med B, you can access that by going to outpatient therapy and getting that extra, again, fluff and buff. Always speak up. If you feel like you haven't gotten the therapy or services that you need, don't be afraid to ask. There's always something. Renee?
Yeah, so, having experienced, some of us, with family members being a healthcare proxy, the biggest question typically that people need to answer and advocate for is, what is my baseline? Where am I getting back to? And unfortunately, if you don't articulate where your baseline used to be and they make an assumption, you're gonna get shortchanged on your physical and occupational therapy.
That is an excellent point.
I constantly remind, like with my mom, remind the doctors where her baseline was, and every doctor, every shift, this is what it was, every shift, constantly. And, and then at the rehab place. So, because that's gonna determine how insurance is gonna cover you. Because if your baseline was more mobile before, and you don't let them know that, they discharge you earlier, then you're not gonna get the benefit.
Absolutely, and you're going to risk injuring yourself again. I'm going to give you a scenario. So something else, your doctor is your doctor. Your medical professionals are trained to handle anything you can throw at them, literally. If they ask you, how many drinks do you have per week? I'm just using this as an example. Not that anyone's ever asked me that. How many drinks do you have a week? You need to be honest with them, because maybe a medication that they're going to prescribe to you has an adverse reaction to alcohol.
Could you talk about too, how the state does from, the rating system and what they should look at when you're going out looking at different nursing settings? There is a rating system that the state has?
Sure. We are a 5-star facility, and that is a pretty intense process. The state comes in and surveys all the disciplines and all the departments, from housekeeping to maintenance, all the way up through our medical director and medical records. And it's pretty tight. It's pretty thorough. They're usually there for about 4 days, and they cover everything. And we don't know what they're going to ask us, right? They'll come in and they'll just pick a chart, just like you would out of a deck of cards. They'll just pick a chart and they'll review it. And then they have a system. They have a quality star rating. They have a staff rating, and then what's the third one? Quality, staff, I think facility,
Yeah.
the facility maintenance.
And 5-star is the best?
5-star is the best. I do have to say, however, though, that the 5-star rating can be a little bit skewed sometimes. It is a numbers game. There are some really great buildings out there that are 3-star buildings that probably got what we call a tag, meaning the state came in and looked at the nursing facility and gave them a tag because a CNA left dirty linens on the floor. Okay, not a cool thing to do. It's, risk for injury there, it's infection control. But does that affect the level of care I'm actually going to get? I mean, it's not a good indication if that's something that happens over and over again. But again, that tends to be skewed. So if you're looking at the stars and it's 3 out of 5, ask yourself, why didn't it make the 5? And if it didn't make the 5 because of housekeeping, but they got 5 stars for care and 5 stars for staffing, you may want to consider that facility. We are 5 across the board. We've been deficiency-free for 2 years, which is pretty much unheard of. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you,
I
thank
do.
you very much. Good questions, good questions. I'm making notes for next time. It's a lot. No, short-term rehab
Yeah.
and skilled care
Confusing.
is a lot. And I'm happy to, my number's on here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to be a resource for you for my building or any other building and any questions you may have.
And that's what we all try to be, resources for everybody. So, you know, we might not be able to help you with home care or assisted living, but we know someone that could do something else. So, you know, I can use the term Rolodex. People remember that term, right? We all have a Rolodex. We all have a database where we know what person we can call and they will help you out. So we all try to be resources for the community at large out there.
And you all have a wonderful resource, the Elder Services of Worcester. If you have any questions and you want a biased opinion, you can always call them and they can point you in the right direction and give you some information as well.
And you have a very active Renee. I must say, we do a lot of programs at different senior centers, and Renee is very active and is definitely helpful, which we don't see always. Great. Next, we're
Well,
going to go to Patty,
We've
talk
come
about
to the
hospice.
end of the line, quite literally.
The end of the highway.
So I'm Patty Tebow. I am from Notre Dame Healthcare Center on Plantation Street. Yes, we do have a campus with buildings. We have assisted living and long-term care and skilled rehab. And we work with partners here all the time because
All the
not,
time.
like they said, the bed availability. It's, you
Right,
know,
right.
everybody's not for everyone. These are trusted partners in the community for sure. The thing that a lot of people don't understand about hospice, especially particularly ours, is that we are not a building. We actually go into 44 towns and cities throughout central Mass, and we serve folks where they live, wherever that may be. It could be the rest home at Lily Mansion. It could be Archer Grove Assisted Living. They could be at home and they've got private pay in there, or it could be somebody who's in a group home, an apartment. You know, there's no like place that you have to be to get hospice care. The other thing people typically don't understand or know about hospice is that it's not just for the last week, days of life. A lot of people feel a lot of guilt if they're a healthcare proxy, or if a person has to make their own decision around quality of care versus quantity of care, maybe stopping some treatments that they're no longer getting any benefit from. They have more sick days than they have good days. And that's a really, really difficult decision to make. And making it when you're not in crisis is going to be life-changing, altering. I should go out and say, like, it's really that big of a deal, because when you're making decisions under crisis, you're not necessarily making solid decisions. You're doing the best you can at the worst possible time. So the most loving, most educated people you know will sometimes make decisions that don't really benefit their loved one. But that's not how they're feeling or seeing it. They're thinking, if I sign this person up onto hospice, I've just signed that they're gonna die. And they're taking it literally. And the problem with that mindset is what is happening with your diagnosis, whatever disease that may be, it has a certain trajectory. The body is the body, and the brain knows, you know, you can only fight nature so much. And we discuss, you know, how you come into the world, but a lot of us don't like discussing what happens when it's time to leave. And we don't always know when and what what it's gonna be like. And so rather than admit it's gonna happen, we try to fight it tooth and nail. And in doing that, you can sometimes actually shorten someone's life. With hospice, you can actually extend their life. Once they get all those touch points in, depending on the diseases, you're getting their symptoms regulated better. They're having better quality days. They're able to eat because they're not nauseous all the time now. Maybe, you know, they're able to have family members come and see them, which lifts their spirit, gives them energy. They get to do life review, which is really important. And I'll mention, we do a program through the VA in the Hospice Federation called We Honor Vets. Life review for veterans can be extremely difficult. To tack on that, dementia in a veteran or Parkinson's, a lot of the diseases that we see our veterans having, they're sometimes brought back in time. So the PTSD is not past traumatic, it's currently traumatic experiences. And that can be really difficult for the caregiver. Obviously, it's difficult for the patient. If someone's in a nursing home or long-term care, it's difficult for the staff. They're not always trained at end of life. They're trained, to make sure that these people are getting 3 meals a day and a shower and in their meds. We're coming in and just looking at that one person and trying to figure out like who is the core of that person, what are their needs, both physically, spiritually, mentally, like what do we need to do, to give this person quality.
Can you talk a little bit about your staff, your medical staff, and how they all
Yep.
work?
Yeah. So, basically, I also there's one more, because these are the three biggest misconceptions, is length of stay, signing someone's, death warrant. It's also that a lot of times people don't understand how it's paid for, and so they're a little nervous about that. And then there's also a misconception, are we there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially for home patients? Medicare, unless you worked for the state and you have like a separate insurance, Medicare will cover it, because primarily people are either disabled or over 65 and they are using their Social Security benefit. So that covers it 100%. If you're younger, we do take private insurances, and there's a slew of them, too many to get into. So it is not something that you're paying for out of pocket. And just like the 5-star rating, when it comes to staffing and when it comes to comparisons, it's pretty amazing how hospice, it's not really, people don't like to talk about it, so there's not a lot of facts out there, and we think everybody, you hear the word, oh, you guys are angels for doing what you do, and there's this conception that, everybody's in it for the right reason. But a lot of hospices are owned by for-profit national companies. They are not local. And even though hospice is regulated under Medicare, CMS, so you have to follow the rules and the guidelines, but the guidelines and the rules are bare minimum. So if you can send a nurse once every 14 days, that's part of the regs. But we want to send somebody out 2-3 times a week. We want to send out, we've got our RNs who will kind of be we call them the quarterbacks, they're running the show. And then they give out care plans to home health aides that can come into your home 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes more if needed. They help with ADLs, like giving a shower, taking a meal. They can just be companionship, watching your favorite Judge Judy. They don't have to necessarily be changing your bed, but that's what you need, that's what they're there for. We also have spiritual care, which is, again, life review. Sometimes it's really important, and if not for the patient, but for the family members or caregivers. We also have social work, and people think about social work as therapy, which, yes, that's what they can do, but a lot of times they're helping you with making decisions not in crisis. So you come to us, we know that this disease can progress, we know that you're handling it right now, but things could change. And are you capable of doing this 24/7? That's where we maybe call a private pay company and say, we'd like to start getting some quotes. We'd like you to meet the family. We'd like you to come and talk to them about what that would look like. We might want to start talking to our partners out in long-term care facilities. What do you have for beds? How's your census? And if they don't need, if they need us to help them fill out paperwork, admission forms, talk to the social worker at the building. Those are things that when you're just trying to get through your 24-hour day with your loved one, it's really hard to make all those phone calls. It's hard to figure out what long-term care. And again, if you're not doing it in crisis, there is time for people to come in and help you with those decisions. And they don't all have to come true, but it's nice to say, okay, if things go perfect, it's great, plan A. We're in this a plan A. If they go a little bit south, maybe here's plan B. If this happens, then that. And then maybe it's plan C. If they do go to the hospital and there is a worst case scenario, we're prepared mentally that we may have to make the decision for long-term care, that we no longer can safely care for our loved one in our home. We also have music therapy, massage therapy, because we know that touch, and sound, no matter what the disease, are crucial to all humans at end of life. And again, that's where your quality, it sounds like that's wrong to give up some services, and now you're going on hospice, we're gonna take away all your services, all your rights. We don't write prescriptions, we don't make the determinations. Your PCP stays with you, and they have discussions with our nurses, we make recommendations that they may or may not like or take. Same with the family. We may have a family who's really not on board with certain things, and we have to honor their wishes. We will educate them so they can understand better the why behind some of the things that we do at end of life. The misconception, when family members feel that they're holding back services, so IV hydration, feeding tubes, things like this. These are really difficult decisions. But hospice people are trained to be able to educate you why it actually is not effective for some of these things. These are life-sustaining treatments, and if we utilize them at the wrong time, they're actually going to hasten death. They can, they can really cause a lot of complications, but you have to trust the nurse who's telling you that, or you have to trust the spiritual care or the social worker, whoever's delivering that news. You have to trust that they're telling you the truth. And if you just met them as you're getting rushed out of the hospital at the last minute, they're just strangers, just like everybody else who's rushing in and out. There's no relationship there. And so with that said, look up a few, figure out the for-profits versus the nonprofits, the local hospices versus the nationwide corporate hospices, and inviting people into your home at the most difficult time in your life, and to not know who's coming into your home is really scary. It's a very scary situation. And like I said, we all like to think that everybody's in it for the right reasons. I believe the RNs straight across the board, the home health aides straight across the board, spiritual counselors straight across the board. It's the corporate quality quantity. So the more people you have on service, the more money that you make. The less services you provide, the bigger the profit's going to be. And that's the really sad part about learning that healthcare is it's a business, and when I first got into it, I was looking at it like it was this just wonderful, occupation, but the people doing it, the people on the ground, the people like us, we're just here to give you education, ask you to don't be afraid.
Patty, could you talk about, to go on hospice, you have to have a diagnosis?
Yeah, so, and again, people will say, oh gosh, that's not gonna be the case with my loved one. It's usually 6 months or less. That is a hugely random number based on a hugely diverse population.
Sure is.
That was pulled
It
out
is.
of a hat so many years ago that I have even, what evidence-based, it could have been back when cancer was coming to light, and people, how do you get medications into the homes of people with cancer? So, this could have been for many different things. Now we've got Alzheimer's, we've got we've got so many chronic diseases that could go on for a really long time. When do you know the switch, So it's really like a doctor's best guess. Based on the information I'm seeing, based on what has happened in the last 6 months, if things continue down this path, I wouldn't be surprised if we had a 6 month or less diagnosis. Now, some people come on service, and like I said, all of a sudden they start eating because we've managed their pain. Now they're not throwing up because they're not getting these treatments. Sometimes it's a dementia patient who's very isolated. Now they're having touch and sound and spirituality. And they're with us 2 years later. They're with us a year later.
graduate.
They graduate.
They graduate as if like you stabilize and now you no longer need the services. But there are people that they are continuing to decline, just not on your term of 6 months. Because again, they got on service, they got some really good care, they're not getting better. They're not reversing their COPD, but now they've learned some strategies on how not to panic. Now they've learned some strategies. So it can really be life-changing, and we don't kick you off after 6 months. You don't run out of benefits, so you stay with us as long as you need us, and it's up to our medical director to work with the staff, the PCP, the family, to always make sure that we're being above board in making that decision. So we have regular conversations around that.
Palliative care too, do you want to touch base on that?
Palliative care, brace yourself, that is a much more popular word than hospice. But you're not gonna know, depending on who's telling you the word palliative care, what they mean by that. It's definitely an easier conversation to talk about palliative care, but know that insurance really determines what palliative care is right now in this industry. We have a palliative care program. It's one of the only in Central Mass or even in Massachusetts. There's very, very few. It's consultative. So you can be being discharged from a rehab. You can be in the rehab. We go into the buildings.
You do.
We're in the nursing homes, in the rehabs. And a nurse practitioner will come bedside and start to work with the social worker, the case manager, the family on a safe discharge. Like, what's it gonna look like when they get home? And they could go into the home, safety. Again, those chronic diseases like COPD, AFib, they can go in and start to really work on strategies to help you to stay out of the hospital, stay out of the 911. It's not an emergency service. Palliative care is based on what your needs are at the time. And it's an NP that goes to wherever you live, and they work with your doctors. They don't prescribe. They will help the doctor to de-prescribe if that's what's necessary, because we know that there's a lot of that going on, especially if you've been to an ER more than 3 times in a couple of months. You're going to have a lot of prescriptions from a lot of different doctors, and sometimes they're just not reacting well together, and you just need someone to sit down, kind of sort it out. And also somebody to get eyes in the house to go, well, you're short of breath because your recliner's here and the bathroom's over there. Maybe we put the TV and the recliner in the dining room, and we put the dining room in the living room, and now you don't have to worry about that. So, it could be simple stuff, it could be really complicated stuff. But that is Medicare Part B, and private insurances will pay that. And is billed by the hour, just like if you had a podiatrist that would come to your house. They could come to your house, and it's a specialty. So they kind of like, healthcare's like Swiss cheese. If you don't know what you're doing, you can fall through the holes really, really easy. So they try to create a safety net. So they work with people like here. They're at Orchard Grove. They work with Lynn all the time. And then if somebody needs hospice, and that's, because they've educated them, they'll start getting the advanced care plans in place and healthcare proxy, and they'll make a referral to hospice. Not everybody does. Some people, they're stable, they're good. They don't need us anymore, but they'll call us if they do. So palliative, you don't have to have a terminal diagnosis. You just have to have something chronic or serious, and that can change over time.
I think also it's so important, it's not just for the patient with hospice. I've used it for my mother personally, and I do use them professionally all the time, but I think it's really important, not just for the patient, but it's also the family. So maybe a little elaboration on
Yeah,
that?
well, for instance, can I share?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, military family, Lynn's mom and dad, we work with the Veterans Association. We did a pinning ceremony, and we went bedside, and we played her branch of military, honored her with a pinning, a certificate of her service, and Lynn's dad got to participate in that, and so did Lynn. And they got to see their mom honored for her service. And that feels really good. And it feels good to the spouse, because, again, life review. Now you've got this moment in time that you can treasure.
Right.
Our music therapist was there with Lynn's mom in the very last stages.
Right.
And she was playing her guitar, basing the rhythm on the breathing pattern
It's
of
very
Lynn's mom. Because you can hear right up till the end, and there's a lot of agitation sometimes,
Right.
a lot of noise pollution, and so getting the heart rate down. So,
I think
but
what's-
again, we had been a part of
Right.
her life for a
Right.
really long time. We got to know who her dad was, who her mom was, who Lynn was, and by the time they were at that stage, we already knew what to do. We weren't strangers.
Right. I think what's important too is that once that person passes, how many days?
13 months.
That the family can use, the social workers can,
We have
they
a full
grief
bereavement.
counselors, bereavement
Yeah.
counselors. Very important because everybody grieves differently. And when that loved one passes, you're not quite sure. 4 months down the road, you're driving
Yeah.
and you're at a red light and a song comes on that was my mom's favorite, and I, lose it at a red light crying. And it's really important to have that backing to reach out to the hospice company and say, I really want to talk about the grief process.
And it's 13 months, and the reason for that is there's a first of everything. Literally a first of every single thing for 13 months. Your first this without, your first that without. I will tell you, I do think that we have a hard time getting people to come and participate because we've done so much work ahead of this participatory grief, the education. So I do grief work, peer-to-peer counseling in 3 different senior centers. And what I see is traumatic loss because they didn't have time to prepare or they didn't refer to hospice soon enough. So it ended in crisis. And so there's a lot of things you're then struggling with. The better job we do, the better peace you hopefully will have when the time comes. Any questions?
Questions for any of us? Patty or Michelle or Melissa, myself?
We threw a lot at you all.
I know.
Can I jump in, Lynn?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's a lot of misnomers going around, the difference between palliative care, hospice care. So many different levels of home health care, there's, medical model, there's, your home health aid, there's independent and assisted living. I'd like to take a quick minute to talk about the
Absolutely.
difference between a nursing home and a short-term rehab unit. A lot of people intertwine the two of them, and they are not the same levels of care. When you do go and visit facilities, know that sometimes the short-term rehab unit is on the nursing home unit. So your room across the hall could be a resident of the long-term care. The short-term rehab unit at Lutheran is its own unit, its own facility, 23 beds, 11 of them are private. And I just want to go over a typical day of a short-term rehab patient, 'cause it's not like a nursing home. So in the hospital, you have a Johnny, you get your meals, they come in, they check your blood pressure, they do their vitals, PT and OT come in, the doctor comes in, does his rounds, the case manager will talk to the social worker, and then the next day it goes on until you progress and then you go home. In the short-term rehab unit, your stay is a little bit longer. We encourage you to wear clothes. We want you to wear shoes. We'd like to see how you ambulate. We'd like to know, can you dress yourself, upper and lower body? Sometimes you are in therapy and you don't even know it. We had a patient who came and said, I've been here for 2 days and I haven't gotten any occupational therapy. Well, did someone come in and, assist you out of bed? Did they watch you dress? Did they help you shower? Did they set up your ADLs? That's occupational therapy. Did someone take you for a walk from here to the dining room? You might not know it, but you're engaged in therapy while they're ambulating you because they're assessing you as you walk. So you're going to wake up, you're going to have your breakfast, you're going to be encouraged to get up, get out of bed if you're able to. A dietitian, a nutritionist is going to come in, ask you how your meal was. Your therapist, under the direction of your care plan, is going to come in and do therapy with you. Then you're going to have lunch. If you would like to participate in some of the activities that we have in the building that are offered to our nursing home people, you're welcome to do that. Go listen to some music, play bingo or what have you. But know this, if you are in short-term rehab, unlike at assisted living where residents can come and go as they like, if you're in short-term rehab and you decide, I think I want to go out and have lunch with my daughter today, similar to Lynn's services, your therapy is now canceled. If you are able to do things like that, then there is no reason for you to be in short-term rehab. Therapy will always come before a family visit, so don't be offended if your brother, sister, mother, aunt, uncle comes in and wants to see you and are told, I'm sorry, you can't see Lynn right now, she is in therapy. It's no joke. We don't want you to stay any longer than you need to be here. We don't make money off of you the longer you stay. So please don't think that we want you there. It's called a bundled payment program. We actually want you out of there sooner rather than later, as Renee had said, back at your baseline. Because this is how healthcare works. You're going to come into a short-term rehab unit, and that insurance company and Medicare, they already know what they're going to pay for your diagnosis.
Yep.
Right off the bat. They don't even have to read your chart. There's a code for your diagnosis. It could be J.191.4. And that code has a price tag on it and a length of stay on it. And it says, okay, based on this information, this person should get this many hours a day. They should discharge at day 4, and we're going to give you $400 a day for their care. If you come in, $400 a day for your care, not your room and board, and you're at a higher clinical level, we have to eat that. We have to eat that because we still have to provide your care whether we're getting paid or not. So trust me when I say, when you come in, we don't want you to stay. We're happy to see you come, but we are more than happy to see you go. We want you to come in. We want you to get back to your baseline because we want you to come in and get the best bang for your buck. Get all the care that you need, get all the therapy you need, get back to your baseline, and then go home. We don't make money keeping you there. So if you're laying there and you're thinking, God, I've been here for 3 days, I want to get out of here right now. But we're not holding you hostage. Sometimes it's your insurance company, and sometimes you're just not ready to go.
Again, we're resources for you. We have our cards up there. All our cards have our numbers on. Please give us a call if you have any questions, or if we can direct you to someone else that might be able to help you. And I guess, the theme here is advocate for yourself and advocate for your loved one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I have a question. So my daughter's father-in-law is in something, I'm not really sure. But the doctor is giving her mother-in-law a really hard time when she asked, she'd been advocating for him. She thought he needed iron and blood check, and they hadn't done it for a while, and then they found out he was really, really bad anemic. And the doctor got incensed that she was questioning him. What do you do when that happens? Call your lawyer? And I mean, not really.
If you're in a nursing home setting, you can then also speak with the administrator or the director of nurses. Voice your opinion.
Yeah. It's a chain of command.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll say too, you'll see this around hospice. There are a lot of doctors who are very against this because they're trained to save lives. They're trained to, and it's changing a little bit now, but if there's not even a course about this,
That they take?
I mean, how much time could I ask this gentleman? Do you remember there being a lot of time spent on,
When I was in there.
oh, no, I'm talking to the doctor.
And he was in nursing. He was an RN at UMass.
Oh, and you were already, yeah, so how much time was actually spent? I'll take from either one of you.
Well, I worked in a trauma center, and I was also in the military, and so I was there to take care of patients.
That trauma's different.
Yeah,
Especially post-traumatic, but there wasn't a lot of,
Yeah.
a lot of backup.
yeah,
I mean, occasionally if you had a good manager, they would say, how do you feel about, what happened?
Right.
But that was far and few between.
Yeah.
It was clean up your room and go on to the next.
the next, yeah. Do you have anything to add?
I was a lay volunteer.
Yeah,
I'm a physician, I went as a lay volunteer, so, say, you want to show me a lab lay report, that's fine, but I would give an opinion, or I would not, you still have to talk to your physician. Visit the family twice a week, and then at the end came closer, more often, an hour, 2 hours,
yeah.
4 hours.
He was a volunteer for our hospice.
Oh.
His physician.
Yes, it is.
You're my kid's pediatrician. They're in their early 20s now.
Did a good job.
They're funny.
Healthcare is a weird industry. I mean, we'll question a realtor when they come in and tell us
Right.
what they think their
Right.
house is worth. And you'll say, no. And you'll have a conversation with them about that. You get a bad meal at a restaurant, you have no problem speaking up. But when you have a doctor or a nurse telling you something,
Right. White coat
oftentimes
syndrome.
people will do this.
And there's certain generations that, a physician was God.
Yeah.
Whatever they said yes.
The
Yeah.
advantage that I had as a lay volunteer was that I would tell mom, I said, you haven't stepped out of the house, I'm going to stay at home with the patient, with all the sibling or whatever, and you can go out and go shopping, go with your friend, go have coffee. And as a pediatrician, the advantage I had was that there were a lot of issues with siblings and
Yeah.
how do you handle that? How
Right.
do you handle the psychological aspects of the
Sure.
Yeah.
patients in the
Yeah.
I did pediatric hospice. And I had at least a dozen pediatric patients from ages 5 months to 21 years old. And there were a lot of
Yeah.
issues that come up. When I called a family and boy was 19 years old, and I said, I don't know what it's called, and I want to come
Thank you.
and introduce myself. He said, I don't see you, but I want you to come and my parents might need your help.
Yes,
And
yeah,
subsequently, I was this kid's only friend.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's, I thank you so much for what you did, because I didn't share that with you, is that, we also, part of the regulations that you have a certain percentage of volunteers on your program for exactly what he's talking about. And there's a really good secret I call it the best kept secret in Worcester, is we also have a pediatric palliative program. We have 150 kids that we care for, ages like pre-birth right through till they rose it to 22 years old now. We can take them till 22, but they transfer onto our hospice, and I think there's 2 other hospices maybe in Massachusetts that will take children. Nobody, it speaks to the level of compassion and the level of care that our hospice workers, and it comes from the top down. Our executive director will go out and take care of a baby if we don't have, it's really different, or a teenager, or, early 20, it's different, every single case is different, but, it's just an interesting thing, and he did volunteer for us, so he made a lot of differences. And our volunteers in the nursing homes that say the rosaries, they make a big difference.
you mentioned when you were talking with Patty about how you relieved some of the
Yeah.
caregivers. Did you want to talk about respite? Do you have respite at your building, or do you want to?
We do have respite. We have respite if we have availability. So you can stay respite. So sometimes you'll go to short-term rehab, and still going home might not be the safest option. You could use a little TLC where you don't have to worry about cooking. You can get a little extra support, safer environments, no stairs, easy in, easy out bathrooms. So respite is a temporary stay at our community. It's for as little as 30 days up to 90 days, 3 months. The apartment's fully furnished, complete with cable, phone, internet. All you have to do is pack your suitcase, bring your bag and your toiletries. And you can stay at a community like ours if going home right when you're released from short-term rehab is not an option. Or if you are caring for a loved one at home and maybe you're going on vacation and you need a safe place for your loved one to stay, it's also a great option to take a look at a community like ours, where you know that they'll be well cared for, they're gonna have everything that they need. It's a wonderful option for them. So, but don't be surprised if they don't wanna come back home. Sometimes they like
The
to
food
stay.
is fabulous there.
Yeah.
We have gone, all of us have gone and enjoyed the culinary department there.
It's like a resort.
It's a very active building,
It
I
is.
will say,
It
like,
is.
and again, that's why we say, go check
Go
out
look.
if you don't mind, if you
have
could
lunch.
squeeze it in, because you really do get a taste, you get the vibe, and not everything, fits for every person.
Correct.
So you will find different atmospheres, and some will stick, but, it's really hard to hide the feel, the vibe
Right.
It
of a
is.
building.
It is.
I think you can only be on point for like, you can do a tour.
Correct.
And then you're on point for the tour, but if someone's just walking in, it's.
I always say visit, make
You
an
know?
appointment, have that visit. And you make that appointment, you have the visit. And then one day, just bebop in. I thought I'd stop by for
Oh,
lunch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We had a resident that moved in, and she came because she really wanted to make sure it was a good fit for her mom. And so she stopped in and she said, do you think I could just stop in and just meet some of the residents and see an activity? I said, sure. She goes, do I need to make an appointment? I said, absolutely not. She goes, I can just come? I said, sure, you can just come. So for the next couple of months, she just came. And then when her mother moved in, everybody knew the daughter. Everybody knew the daughter. And it was such a great fit for her mom, and it gave the daughter such an ease. So she wasn't nervous about it. She felt relaxed. And so, and again, coming down to everybody at this table, I always say, don't wait till it's a crisis. Take a look. It could be 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I've had a lot of people that have called me after one of these programs and just had more questions and wanted to come in and chat. And, anytime. So they're big decisions.
Absolutely. So we're gonna wrap up. No, go ahead.
Yeah, assisted living, what's supplied as far as furnishings in there?
So, with assisted living, even independent living, it's your choice. So I have a lot of residents that may move in from Florida. They're coming back to be closer to kids, or I have residents that move to us from around here.
Yeah.
But it's a different size than their living room, right? Your furniture is from like maybe 20 years ago, where you had the big arms and the big backs. So you
A
need something
divan.
smaller.
Yes.
So I have some residents that they like me to furnish it. I have what I call suitcase apartments, so you can just literally move right in.
Yeah.
And I have brand new furniture in there. You bring sheets, towels, and any little tchotchkes that you'd like. Otherwise, you can bring your own furniture.
Do they have stoves and refrigerators there?
So my apartments have refrigerators, microwaves, they have 2 induction burners. We do not have an oven, but you can bring your toaster oven, coffee maker, but there's no oven, so there's really no cooking. And that's the whole point, is that you don't have to cook anymore. And trust me, once you have the food, you won't really
Right.
want
I
to
like to cook,
You do?
yeah.
So,
But
well, we do
even
have
if
we
They
do
do
have
cooking
communal kitchens.
demonstrations.
We do have a kitchen downstairs and a kitchen upstairs. So if there's something that you want to cook, you absolutely can use one of our ovens in the bistro, which is nice, and you don't have to worry about cleaning up your own place. So,
And I need a refrigerator, because some of my medicine's gonna be.
yep, you have
Yeah.
a refrigerator for sure, and a nice sized freezer for all ice cream and things like that.
I really encourage you to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need
So-
ice cream.
So,
If
even
anything for lunch, because
Diet-
Jeremy
Yeah.
is award winning.
yeah.
Yeah.
They come for events that we have, and I really think they just come to see Jeremy.
We do.
We
I've
do. We
decided
like
that,
her. We
so-
do. We like her. We get
They do.
along, but.
Jeremy's
the
very,
food's-
very
the
good.
food's
He's a
pretty good.
5-star award winning chef. And when
Yeah.
I
He
tell
is.
you, he puts out a display.
And we do-
I got 5-star home that I still live in.
So we do give events, we do our flyers, we do an event every month, and we do leave them here at the senior center. And you can come to anything like that. It doesn't mean that you're ready to move in, you're even looking. But it's a nice way to try, see what we're about, just have some, a nice drink and something to eat. But yeah, you're more than welcome to come. We have people that have been coming to us for a couple of years just to see what it's about. They're nowhere near ready to move in with us, but again, they just want to get the feeling of the community.
Now,
So-
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's why I'm here.
Absolutely.
No,
Well,
hey,
on the
it's worth
21st, we're
checking out.
doing
The
a
more you
lobster
know.
roll.
There
So
you
you'll
go.
see it, we'll leave it at the front desk so you
Yeah.
can stop by.
Eventually I'm gonna get old.
So,
Catches up
I
with
say that
everybody.
too. So.
In closing, we just want to reiterate who we are. So my name is Lynn Alexandrowitz, and I represent Accessible Home Health. We're a private home care agency. Our office is in Auburn. We service this market area. My office number is 508-859-1644. I do have cards over there and brochures with my cell number. If you want to give me a call and you have any questions, please feel free.
I am Melissa Berardo from the Residence at Orchard Grove, located on Walnut Street in Shrewsbury. My direct line is 508-841-6450, but my contact information is over there on my card. And we'd love to show you around for a visit.
My name is Michelle Moran.
Okay,
I'm the
careful.
I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Lutheran Rehab and the Lily Mansion. We are a rest home, short-term rehab, long-term care, and dementia care located in a beautiful 150-year-old mansion in Worcester. Our main number is 508-754-8877. And again, I do have this pamphlet for you. It's general information. It's not a brochure. Please feel free to take it, but I also have brochures up there if you have any additional questions.
Patty Tebow, Notre Dame Healthcare, and I work for the hospice palliative service lines, as I had said. And I would encourage you, because there's so much information, it's so hard to really break it into such a short little time. If anybody, just to be curious, just to be a little bit ahead of yourself, when you have a minute, go onto our website. The website is really good when it comes to the palliative versus hospice. and what that includes. Because it's really good to know your facts versus the fiction that you hear a lot of times out there. So I would say a visit to the website would probably be a really smart thing to educate yourself with.
Right. And we all have websites too, and they're all on our
Right.
cards and brochures too.
And the Center for Medicaid Services also has a lot of tools that you can access if you're going to go tour facilities. The assisted living, what is the assisted living? Alca, well, no, what's,
Mass Alpha.
Mass Aloe.
yeah,
Allo.
Mass Allo, they have forms to give you tools to help you.
Yeah, mass.gov, CMS, yeah.
Yep.
Just go on and
Great.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for coming.
thank you
thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you, everybody. I hope
Grab some information.
you absorb some of it.
Yeah, it's a lot, it's a
A
lot.
lot to take in.